I'm just starting to wrap my head around what happened this week, because this is the most gangster move I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, honestly, like, hats off to Saylor. I have to believe he's probably working with the state at this point for this to be allowed, but we'll find out. And what he's doing is now he's offering stable value with Stretch. And I was like, stable value? The fuck is that? And I started reading on this. I'm trying to understand. I'm listening to some of these podcasts, and finally started clicking. I'm like, oh man. So this instrument that he's offering, it pays out a monthly dividend, and there's an interest rate on that dividend. And the interest rate is adjustable. He's also got some other things. I don't fully understand all the mechanics, because I got the ability to call or claw some of this back when he wants to. So he has these different levers he can pull. But the idea is variable interest rate, monthly, paid out monthly, stable value. And you're just like, stable value? Wait a second. This guy's issuing a Bitcoin backed dollar. Oh shit. Because if he's at, and in his little chart where he explains this, he's like, and what are the markets we're going after? And he's like, all of commercial paper, all of like commercial savings accounts or like retail savings account, stable coins. I'm like, oh man, he's coming for Tether. He is coming for Tether. And then he's not stopping there.
Did he say that publicly?
Well, he didn't say it publicly, but in the slide, stable coins is like a tiny, tiny blip compared to the like whatever, $7 trillion in like dollar denominated commercial paper and overnight lending. But when I started understanding this, I was like, okay. And one tweet from this Bitcoin research account I love just said it perfectly. Before this week, Saylor was, or MicroStrategy, whatever they're called, Bitcoin's investment bank. He gets Bitcoin, he goes to the market, he securitizes it, he brings capital into Bitcoin. Great. As of this week, assuming he's allowed to do this, and again, I am highly skeptical he's allowed to do this unless there's some implicit agreement from the state part. He is now the central bank. He is issuing effectively dollar-denominated assets. But unlike stablecoins, which with the Genius Act and all that can't offer the yield because Tether is making ungodly sums of money by just like blanketing all the 5% from treasuries or whatever it is, he's sharing yield with his customers. And unlike all of the past algorithmic stablecoins, and by the way, this has been like the wet dream of like all of the crypto bros, and Andreessen's backed like 6 versions of this over the years, but they never work because it's always backed by some coin that people don't want. You know, it's always scammy people like, what's his name? The Korean dude. Like it's always just,
Joe Kwan.
Yeah, that dude. It's like, and look, to be clear, like, I don't know, is there a chance that Saylor gets above his skis here and starts getting through it? It's certainly possible. I'm not saying like, this is the first one where I've been like, okay, watch this closely, but he has way more of a real asset backing it, which in my opinion is radically undervalued in Bitcoin. He has the ability to adjust interest rate, to take instruments out. I think that's what the sort of call option is, or clawback mechanism at any point. He's got a lot more levers that he can pull. And he's radically over collateralized with how much Bitcoin he has. So if you start thinking about it, then he's like, okay, well, if he can start basically being the new issuer of the dollar, and now with the Genius Act, he can tokenize those instruments, which effectively become stable coins. Oh my God. Like the story is not Tether. The story is not stablecoin. The story is Michael Saylor is creating the new Federal Reserve. Now, and when I put on my investor hat, I'm like, as Bitcoin reprices the world, if you believe that's going to happen, I believe that's going to happen. We all believe that's going to happen. NVIDIA at 30 million Bitcoin is literally impossible. This is going to become the most valuable company in the history of humanity. Oh my God. And then you put on your Bitcoiner hat and you're like, wait a second, what does that mean for Bitcoin? Oh shit, this guy's going to like suck up so much Bitcoin. And, you know, I kind of joke that the attack was never sort of 1984, but Brave New World. It's not going to be like, okay, you can't hold your keys. No, it's going to be like, hey, like, just give us your keys. And like, you want that mansion and the Lambo? You got it, bro. It's all there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are going to be like, sweet, I'm in. And like, I mean, look, I'm an investor too. Like you would be foolish not to at least entertain what's happening here. And yet I also increasingly think that if we don't get some kind of a breakout use case for Bitcoin payments in the next 12, 18, maybe 24 months, like Bitcoin as money may not function for a generation. And that's a risk. I know that's spicy, but yeah.
So thanks for that explanation. So do you see a next logical step is to issue tokens that are 1-to-1 to this traditional
I don't even
security?
think he needs to do that, because we saw, wasn't it Robinhood that says we're going to take a thing? I don't even think they can't actually access OpenAI stock, but they said we're going to tokenize AI stock and sell it to you.
You're saying he doesn't have to do it.
He doesn't even need to do it. He just,
someone else will.
I would think about the spectrum of offerings that Saylor has provided to the market. starting, the first one was MSTR, and that was just like all the volatility, no yield, right? So you get 100% volatility, 0% yield. Then Stride, Strike, Strife, I think, are the other three, right? They're just different.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm impressed too. You've done your homework.
They're different, areas on there's different trade-offs of like, how much can you pull back? You can't claw back any of it. Here's the risk. You get a kicker in equity. So they're different spectrum of a little bit of risk, a little bit of vol, a little bit of yield, right? So they're some yield, some vol. And then this is kind of like the other end of the spectrum, which is zero vol, all yield, right? And so that is very, very similar to like stable or money market or U.S. Treasury. The U.S. Treasury is what, 4.5% or whatever it is, and I think these ones are 9%, right?
They're starting at
so it's
9.
basically like double. But if the price were to get bid up, they would issue and drive it down, right? So he just is presenting this instrument to the market, and then Robinhood or whoever could take this publicly traded equity that they actually can get access to. They can't necessarily get access to OpenAI stock like they claim to, but they can definitely get access to STRC. They can buy that, tokenize it, and just make it available to everybody worldwide, right?
I see that, but let's talk about potential fragmentation and then what that would mean. So let's say Robinhood does that, but they'd acquire some of this security and then tokenize it, but that's just a subset of the total.
Mm-hmm.
And then other competitors might do that as well. But like Robinhood names this, X and someone else names it Y. Like there's a name mismatch, and then you get this fragmentation. Then we each have wallets, and we just want to have dollars in our wallet. Like what we care about is dollars in our wallet.
Yeah.
What actually is that? It's this token representation of this traditional security.
Right.
But mine is flavor A and yours is flavor B and yours is flavor C. So how do we, first of all, is that accurate that could play out that way? And then secondly, how to deal with that fragmentation, interoperability, maybe the same playbook that stablecoin.
That's what Bridge is, right?
Yeah,
Bridge is,
exactly.
And then my last question, doesn't that suggest that strategy should be the central issuer of the token, much like Tether, and make sure that there's not interoperability issues?
Yeah, maybe I think those are great questions, and I don't think we have tons of clarity on any of them, but none of them seem like it seemed like the kinds of things that would play out in the market, and they could.
I'm not. Yeah. These are not posed as like, oh, this future is not going to work out. It's more just like we will stumble across.
My guess is it will be better for strategy, and I don't have any inside information on this, but my guess is it would be better for strategy to just say, here's a thing in the market, go do stuff with it.
Free market, go.
And, if Robinhood wants to make their own, fine. And if Schwab or somebody wants to make their own, fine. There might be a startup opportunity to be like what Bridge did for stablecoins, to do that for tokenized equity.
Yep.
Right. So that wouldn't surprise me if that kind of thing were to emerge. And if that were to emerge and there was tons of volume, but ultimately it was all STRC as the stablecoin, maybe strategy would later come in and say, okay, let's clean this up.
And to be clear, markets, even prior to Bridge, price this stuff, right? Like in the early days of stable coins, or like at least in the last DeFi wave in 2020, you had the algorithmic stable coins like MakerDAO. Of course, that's backed by ETH. And then you've got, the USDT and USDC, and those traded at different prices relative to each other based on people's different confidence, liquidity, things like that. So I think the market will probably solve that problem. Maybe it's interesting for him to issue his own. Like, I don't know. At this point, I'm like, Saylor can see into the future further than I can. What I do think about though is, the banks have got to be like kind of furious about this, right? Because they just fought to be able to keep the ability to issue stable coins and keep all of that sweet. Tether's got to be furious. Like the treasury yield themselves, like this is kind of like a checkmate move on both the banks and Tether, which is why I'm kind of like,
and Circle.
And
Circle just IPO'd and the valuation was expected to be $5 billion, and now it's $60 billion or whatever. So getting to so first of all, what it impacts them as well.
Yeah.
Also, as far as like strategy valuation, if you just look at the valuation being applied to a Circle and whatever Tether is valued at, which has to be much more than Circle. Yeah, it does kind of suggest a huge valuation.
And by the way, I think the STRC IPO was meant to issue 500. Is that right? 500?
Something like that. million.
million.
I don't know
And then
the
I
exact rate.
think I saw that it's at 2.8 billion.
2.5, 2.8. There's
I thought I saw 2.5, and I saw another one that said 2.8. So maybe as of this morning, I don't know if
it's radically oversubscribed.
did it price yet? Is it out today or no?
I mean, I just saw people speculating. So.
A couple months ago, someone we all know and respect, I think I wasn't part of this conversation, but told you guys that Tethertron, like, it's one.
Yeah, he's like, stop
One,
LARPing.
100%
This is Silicon
of the
Valley
market.
VC.
Like USDC is a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
All the other platforms are a joke. And I forget if we talked about it in the show or just privately, but I'm like, I mean, I totally disagree on the underlying platform. Tether's already demonstrated you can like switch those out over time. And then Tether itself, obviously they are in the driver's seat right now. But I think there's going to be stiff competition with the Genius Act. There's going to be even more competition. I mean, the Genius Act, we didn't talk about it on the show yet, but like, there's a framework so that you can even have federal issued or even state issued ones. And there's like a cap. A state issued one can only be up to $10 billion. But that framework creates a structure where you can imagine lots of competition, lots of different stablecoin issuance. So anyway, with that backdrop, now we're talking about strategy, maybe checkmate move. First of all, that to the degree that that's true or becomes true, then Tether's very vulnerable.
Extremely.
I think,
and let's be clear on this, right? The reason I'm saying it's a checkmate move is because they have so much more Bitcoin than anyone else in the market and remember, all of these different instruments, it's all a flywheel that allows them to just keep sucking the Bitcoin out of the market.
Yeah.
And so it's reflexive. Like the more people buy each of these instruments, including the like radically oversubscribed dollar instrument they're issuing, the more Bitcoin they get. So like, I don't think there is any entity that can play catch up with them at this point, other than perhaps the U.S. federal government itself. But again, I kind of have to think that they're okay with this. Otherwise, and it's almost like a checkmate move from the Fed against the banks, because the banks, I mean, like what's going to happen is even if you're Tether, they have a lot of Bitcoin, and maybe Tether is the one entity that has like a Hail Mary they could throw to try and catch up. And that's probably what they're doing in 21.
Yeah.
But the issue is like, Saylor's so much more Bitcoin than you do. So unless somehow, and I'm guessing we're seeing all these OG whales moving lots of Bitcoin. I think one report was that Adam Back was moving it into 21 or something. So maybe they're just like behind the scenes trying to just gather as much Bitcoin as they can to try and catch up. But like, as they start doing that, the genius of what Saylor is doing is it drives the value of his Bitcoin up even faster, which makes it even harder to catch him. And by the way, all these other treasury companies that we've talked about, like, I think he's just goading all these people into doing this. No offense to these people, but like, I'm sorry, there's no way you're better at risk management than Saylor.
And you're not going to get the same credit terms